Greetings Adventurers, this is Lorne, your guild advisor. DanMachi Season 3 is just upon the horizon, airing in a few weeks, starting on October 2nd. Many of you are probably excited to see what's next for Belle, Hestia Familia, and the rest of Arario, but depending on how JC staff adapts Season 3, which consists of DanMachi light novels 9 through 11, there may be some confusion given how Season 2 adapted Volumes 6 through 8. Especially Volume 8, which mainly adapted the last part of the novel, which makes up maybe 20% of the actual material. It's possible that Season 3 could confuse some anime-only viewers with elements of the plot or characters being out of place. Much like Naz's character, when she suddenly became more relevant during Season 2, most of the confusion coming from her lack of screen time in Season 1. This is the start of a series of videos that will cover the content Season 2 skipped or changed from Volume 6 through 8. Each video dedicated to an arc: War Game, the Pleasure Quarter arc, and finally the Rakian War from Volume 8. I mention a lot of these changes and omissions in my weekly Season 2 reviews, but the aim of these videos is to detail the alterations without my ramblings and feelings towards the adaptation of Season 2 itself. Not every single detail will be covered, but a majority of what I consider important. Without further ado, let's start with the changes throughout episodes 1 through 4 and a small portion of 5. Also known as the War Game arc, covering Volume 6. The War Game arc does start with Volume 6, but there is a small bit of information from Volume 5 omitted from the end of Season 1 that does some foreshadowing for the arc itself. After the defeat of the irregular Black Goliath on floor 18, the guild placed a gag order on the events which transpired. They wanted to keep quiet that two gods entered the dungeon and that an irregular floor boss appeared in the safe zone of floor 18. Even so, rumors still spread with Hyacinthus learning this and reporting to his familiar deity, Apollo, about the possibility that the little rookie himself was the one who dealt the finishing blow. This is when the greedy Apollo decided to make Belle his own. Volume 6 opens up with a scene between Lily and her god Soma. She is already making a request to lead the Familia so she can join Hestia Familia. She's been avoiding contact with her own Familia since she faked her own death when Kanu left her to die in a trap to the killer ants in Season 1. She's been using her Cinderella magic to disguise herself since then. Unfortunately, Xanis, captain of Soma Familia, managed to find her. Naturally, Soma ignores Lily's request, being too obsessed with the creation of his own wine, deferring to Xanis to deal with the manners of the Familia. Xanis is one of few people who can actually resist the effects of Soma's wine, so it's easy to see how he gained more independence than the other members of the Familia who are entranced by the divine wine. Xanis declares a price of 10 million Valis in exchange for Lily's departure from the Familia, a price she obviously cannot pay. Lily is left hopeless, and Chandra, the dwarf from Soma Familia seen in episode 3, tells Xanis that members of Apollo Familia are ready to meet with him. From this small exchange, it's established that Chandra is not fond of Xanis at all, and that there is something happening between Apollo and Soma Familia. The anime opens up with an original scene of Belle, Welf, and Lily being accompanied by Mikoto of Take Mikazuchi Familia as they do some grinding in the middle floors of the dungeon. Here, she apologizes for her Familia's role in putting Belle's group in danger during Season 1 when they passed off a group of monsters as they retreated from the dungeon. This scene was likely added to give a sense that Mikoto is becoming more familiar with Belle's group. The next scene that was skipped over from the novels is a conversation between Belle, Seer, and Ryu. Seer teases Belle that she knows about his accidental peeking at Ryu, but also remarks that the two seem to have become friends. Seer suggests that they celebrate his victory over the Goliath at their pub, but Belle states he has other plans with Welf and Lily for the night. This brings us to the three of them celebrating at the Flaming Wasp due to Welf's level up and his acquisition of the Highsmith skill. The anime skips that Belle ended up receiving the Goliath's hide as a drop item, and Lily notes that Ryu likely got most of the Exilia from the battle since she was fighting it the longest, part of the reason why Belle's stats may not be as high as one would expect from that encounter. While she is talking, Welf and Belle notice Lily seems sad for some reason, and this is due to her earlier encounter with Soma and Xanis. The bar fight being set up by Apollo Familia plays out similarly to the novel. Belle does later meet with Aina just like in the anime, but in addition to her warning about getting into a fight with another Familia, she also takes it upon herself to teach Belle more about the middle floors of the dungeon since they reach floor 18 in Season 1, and they will likely continue to explore the middle floors due to Welf's level increase to 2. In the novel, Naza asks Belle if she looks nice, to which Belle nods nervously. This sense of familiarity between the two might seem odd to anime-only viewers as they had no scenes together in Season 1. To learn more about Naza, you can watch my Familiar Record video about her. Hephaestus was omitted from the party in the anime entirely, which is odd because she does have a small role to play later. Osphie elbowing Hermes across the floor is an original addition, but a humorous one. Belle and Mikoto talk with each other, and this is where Mikoto is originally supposed to apologize to Belle for what happened in a dungeon with her familia. The two both thank each other and also vow to help one another should the other be in need, and thus an alliance between Takemikazuchi and Hestia Familia was born. There's also a fun bit of dialogue the two have with Naza, where Mikoto wonders how Belle is able to level up so quickly, and Naza jokes that she feeds Belle muscle-building pills every day. When Belle is on the balcony outside the party, he sees Hyacinthus and Xanus in conversation, but in the anime the dialogue is completely muted. The novel makes it clear that they are obviously planning something. Since the anime skipped over Xanus' introduction from the beginning of the novel, an anime-only viewer would have no idea who Xanus is at this point. When Hermes converses with Belle, they originally talk about the 3 great quests in the novels, but this conversation was moved to episode 11 of Season 2 since that information was more relevant to those episodes because of the Black Dragon scale shrines seen in the village outside Arario. While Belle and Eyes dance together, Belle remarks internally that Eyes seemed happier than normal and that the happy girl he saw in front of him felt like the real Eyes. After this, Apollo throws an accusation against Belle for hurting Luan and starting a fight at the Flaming Wasp. The anime skips that Hephaestus defends Belle by stating it was Welf that initially started the brawl, but naturally Apollo makes excuses stating that Belle told Welf to start it anyway. After Apollo's declaration against Hestia, Belle actually remarks to himself that he notices that the majority of the members from Apollo Familia appear to be young and innocent in appearance, much like himself. Belle and Hestia lead the party, but as they do, Hyacinthus locks eyes with Belle at the door, giving him a cold stare, unlike the anime where he smirks to himself while watching them leave. After refusing Apollo's challenge, Belle and Hestia make plans to be more cautious when leaving their home. Hestia plans to constantly update Belle's status in case he needs to fight, and suggests that he should go on dungeon runs with Takemikazuchi Familia to reduce the chance of being ambushed in the dungeon. The anime just has him planning to go at Welf and Lily. Belle steps outside to find himself ambushed, but in the novel it's mentioned that he actually notices the faint trace of magic outside, and cautions Hestia to stay back while he slowly opens the door, only to find Apollo Familia outside, ready to attack. As Belle runs with Hestia in tow, he looks back at the ruined church, the novel describing that the one place he was able to call a home in Arario was now gone, and that shook his very core. The rooftop fight scene involving Daphne and Cassandra was originally a bit longer. Belle actually fights with some of the Apollo Familia members, charring a few of them with Firebolt, but as soon as they're taken out, Cassandra heals them in addition to reinforcements arriving to the scene. When the anime cuts to Lily and Welf, Lily is supposed to be using her magic to disguise herself as a werewolf, since she's still hiding her identity. Also, Welf has a new knife he made for Belle, using the leftover half of the Minotaur horn saved from making the previous knife. Hermes and Osphie are supposed to be overlooking the situation, with Hermes remarking that since Freya isn't doing anything to get involved, she's likely enjoying the situation. The sequence with Loki Familia learning about the Apollo Familia ambush is a bit different in the novel. Tione, Tiona, Eyes, Riveria, Gareth, Finn, and Bet are all involved in the conversation. They remark that Apollo Familia seems to not care about whatever the guild's punishment will be for this attack. Bet mentions that Loki went out to watch the spectacle, and Finn warns Eyes not to intervene like in the anime. Though the novel further mentions that Loki is the one that forbade them from intervening and to let things play out for the moment. The anime decided to give the explanation of why the guild won't interfere to an original scene involving Aina and the head of the guild, Royman. A small bit of info left out explains that a mortal killing a deity is a huge taboo, a right that is only reserved for the deities themselves. If Hestia were to be captured, Apollo would threaten to send her back to heaven, meaning Belle had to protect Hestia at all cost. While Belle does fight with Hyacinthus during the chase in the anime, he eventually decides to do a poorly telegraphed frontal charge towards Hyacinthus, making Belle look completely foolish. In the novel version of this fight, Belle only does this max speed charge after Hyacinthus steps away from one of Belle's strikes. Bell was trying to take advantage of the opening, but since Hyacinthus was level 3, he was still fast enough to parry and deflect Bell's rush of attacks. Eventually, Hyacinthus simply outsped Bell and brought him to the wounded state you see in the anime, splitting his breastplate in half. Hyacinthus then mockingly states that in order to make sure Bell does not cause a fuss as he's being captured, he plans to cut a few of his tendons since the healer can take care of it later. The anime makes him comically more cruel, with him saying he plans to straight up remove an arm or leg. Takemikazuchi Familia protects Bell from more reinforcements, with the anime deciding to unite Welf and Lily with Bell here. In the novel, Welf and Lily show up later, getting their own dramatic entrance. Also, rather than have Mihawk sprinkle potion on Bell, Lily gives Bell 3 potions to drink after seeing how wounded he is. As Welf and Lily defend against reinforcements, the anime has Lily jump on rooftops and dispatch them, which is admittedly cooler from the novel version, which has her use a stink pouch to repel a wave of adventurers. While Lily and Welf are dispatching reinforcements, Lily becomes shocked when she notices the Soma Familia emblem, and resolves to look for who is commanding them and find Xanis herself, rather than Xanis taking her by surprise like in the anime. The conversation that takes place between Xanis and Lily is presented in episode 3 during a flashback, the anime trying to create a sense of confusion and tension when Lily leaves Welf behind in episode 2. When Hestia gives Bell 2 options, run or fight in the board game, an image of eyes appears in his head, his heart telling him that he definitely can't leave her behind. As Hestia accepts Apollo's board game challenge, she actually slaps Apollo in the face with the glove, rather than throw it in his face. Also, the people randomly appearing as soon as the challenge is accepted are supposed to be different gods, excited that the board game is happening. One big change from the anime is that when Hestia vows to save Lily from Soma Familia, she requests that Bell give her the Hestia knife, a subplot completely omitted from the anime. In the beginning episode 3, there's an anime original scene showcasing how addictive Soma's divine wine can be, with countless Familia members lining up at the building for it. In the novel, the guild is busy preparing for the board game, while the townspeople are building up excitement to see it, and the gods meet to discuss the rules of the war game, with Hestia delaying the meeting, claiming she's sick. The anime has an original scene with Chloe and Anya describing this instead. Hestia is shown planning a raid on Soma Familia with Takemikazuchi and Mihawk Familia, along with Welf. This is an anime original scene, but one that's appreciated. But it does leave out that Hestia found out where Lily was being kept due to the help of Hermes and Osfi. While deciding the rules for the war game, Apollo does deny Hestia Familia having help from Familias inside Arario. However, the anime omits his reasoning. He is aware that Hestia is friends with Hephaestus, whose Familia has members up to a level 5 captain. While Xanis is talking to Lily in her cell, he mentions wanting to use her magic for some money-making scheme, but the anime never states what that is. Xanis plans to use Lily's transformation magic to lure monsters into traps so he can capture and sell them. This is actually a bit of foreshadowing for novels down the line beyond what is covered in Season 2. While Lily makes her way to where Soma is located, Xanis actually follows her along the way, kicking her around and beating her on the way up to Soma's private room. He ends up kicking her right against the door, breaking it open. As Lily begs Soma to stop the fighting, Xanis taunts her while the novel explains Soma's point of view. He views his divine wine as a gift that he shares with his Familia and is disappointed that the wine turned them into fighting against one another for it. He ends up viewing the words of those who succumb to the wine as irrelevant. What saved Lily from the influence of the wine was the memory of Bell's smile when he saved her from Kanu's trap in the dungeon. She latches onto the feelings that Bell and Hestia gave her, that for the first time in her life she was wanted and needed. The fight between Welf and Xanis actually lasts longer in the novel. They are both level 2, but Welf eventually overpowers Xanis through technique, and the fact that he's using a greatsword against a rapier. A deal is made between Hestia and Soma for Lily's freedom. The omitted Hestia knife subplot comes into play, and the knife is used as collateral in place of the original 10 million Valis fee to convert Lily from Soma Familia to Hestia Familia. If Hestia Familia wins the war game, they can pay for the knife in exchange for the money they win. One thing the anime really downplayed was the emotion and significance of both Mikoto and Welf converting from their own Familias. Takemikazuchi is stressing over the fact that he wants to help Hestia Familia, and he knows the only 2 members that can help are Oka and Mikoto. Oka is the captain, so he thinks of Mikoto as the only option but can't bring himself to ask, knowing how devoted she is to the Familia. Just like in the anime, Mikoto has the same idea and requests conversion herself, remembering the promise that she and Bell made to help one another. Rather than directly say yes, Take replies with, "1 year, such a long time," which is the rule among familias. An adventurer had to wait a full year after converting to another familia before they could convert again. Mikito would not be able to go back to Takemikazuchi familia for a whole year, the familia with whom she grew up. Welf's plea to Hephaestus is very similar to the anime, but the novel reinforces the fact that Welf would naturally lose the right to imprint the Hephaestus emblem on his work as a smith, meaning it would be more difficult to sell his work as a smith since the Hephaestus familia emblem carried a lot of prestige. Even so, Welf throws that away to help Bell. The anime also omits Hephaestus leaving him the parting gift of a red smithing hammer. While the anime did keep the bit of advice Aiz gives to Bell about the opponent being at the most vulnerable when they are assured of their own victory, they did leave out some of the details of Bell's overall training. Bell trains with Tiona and Aiz for 5 straight days, never leaving the training area. They eat and sleep atop the city walls while Tiona brings them supplies. It's Tiona who sees a notice at the guild showing that the 3 new members converted into Hestia familia are from Soma, Hephaestus, and Takemikazuchi familia. As she relays this to Bell, tears of happiness climb down his face because he knows exactly who those 3 people are, inspiring him to train even harder. Tiona teaches him not to use potions right away because they are often limited in supply while in the dungeon. Even when injured, an adventurer needs to be able to keep fighting. There's a scene with Freya which omits a moment where she asks Otaro if a certain item is ready, the same item that Seer later gives to Bell in episode 4. This automatically associates the pendant to Freya's meddling. The beginning of episode 4 opens with Bell uniting with Welf, Lily, and Mikito, freshly converted to Hestia familia along with Ryu, who is the outsider helping with the war game. This scene is completely original, as those 4 already went on ahead to the wargame location while Bell finishes training with Aiz and Tiona. He sleeps at an inn where Hestia updates his status and sends him off in a cart with some townsfolk eager to watch the wargame themselves. The anime version of events doesn't make much sense because they show Bell meeting up with his party in the beginning of the episode, but still adapt a part of the novel where he travels separately from them. Why would he travel separately from the party if they met up prior in the episode? Aina and Misha are seen in the anime on the day of the wargame, but the anime leaves out a conversation where Aina expresses worry for Bell, and Misha encourages her to cheer Bell on. The novel gives some context to the location of the wargame. It is known as Shreem Castle, which was once used as a point of defense in ancient times, when monsters came flooding out of the hole which is now known as the dungeon. It was also once used by the Kingdom of Rakia, the same kingdom that appears in episode 11 of season 2 and volume 8 of the novels. More foreshadowing. Apollo sent about 100 of his familia members to make repairs to the castle to prepare for the wargame after Ganesha familia was tasked by the guild to clear out the castle of bandits who were living there. The night before the wargame, there's actually a dialogue that plays out in the novel where the Hestia familia party converses with each other, but the speakers are not named, though it's obvious from how they talk. Bell mentions his status was freshly updated and Welf finally gives him his new knife, Ushiwakimaru Shiki, to use in place of the Hestia knife which is in Soma's possession. Welf hands Ryu 2 weapons and Bell questions Welf if it bothers him because he knows that Welf does not like relying on his Krotso blood to make magic swords. Welf declares that he's done compromising his friends for pride, and the group resolves to win the wargame. When Ryu is assaulting the castle with magic swords, Lily disguised as Luan was supposed to be on top of the walls along with the archers as a lookout, and shouts that Ryu is using Krotso magic swords specifically. The fact she mentions Krotso magic swords puts everyone on high alert because they are known to be much more powerful than regular magic swords, as they were infamously used by the once invincible Kingdom of Rakia before they were defeated. After Rakia surrendered, the Krotso family smiths other than Welf were cursed to never make magic swords again. The anime does not illustrate this well, but each swipe of the magic swords blasts chunks of the fortress walls, which were just reinforced by Apollo Familia. Ryu also takes on adventurers in groups of 5, 50 people altogether, rushed out by Lily's warnings. Ryu finds irony that she, an elf, is using Krotso magic swords, as they were once used to burn many elven forests by the Kingdom of Rakia. She was also supposed to keep herself covered by a cloak the entire time because she is disguising herself so no one recognizes her as the Gale Wind, a blacklisted adventurer. Ryu is able to fight against her level 2 and below opponents with ease, but Lisos, the elf commander, manages to sneak in a cut across her cheek, which reveals her elf ear, enraging Lisos, as she's an elf using Krotso magic swords. The anime shows Liso's trading blows with Ryu, but in the novel, due to her much higher status, Ryu overpowers him immediately. As Mikoto is racing across the fortress and preparing her gravity spell, she is supposed to be holding an old-looking rustic sword. This is a ruse which Lily uses to trick the Apollo Familia into thinking that Hestia Familia has more magic swords than the two that Ryu used. This causes Apollo Familia to go out in a panic and commit a lot of their members towards pursuing Mikoto. While Mikoto is trying to reach a good spot in the courtyard, she is being assaulted by magic and arrows, being grazed and burned while holding her magic chant together. This is dangerous because chanting magic uses a ton of concentration, and if that concentration is lost, the magic could be let loose, triggering an Ignis Fatuus and blowing up in Mikoto's face like she purposely does in the fight against Samura in the Pleasure Quarter arc. To focus on her magic, Mikoto burns the image of Ryu into her mind because she watched Ryu fight off against the Goliath on the 18th floor, assaulting the Irregular with her sword while casting magic and dodging attacks all at the same time. This combination of attacking and chanting is known as concurrent chanting. When Mikoto finally unleashes her gravity magic, arrows and spells are supposed to be directed at her, only to be immediately grounded due to the effect of gravity. After Welf uses his magic to interrupt Apollo's spellcasters and cause Ignis Fatuus, there's a fun bit of dialogue cut between Loki and Hephaestus, where Loki compliments Welf and teases Hephaestus about letting Welf convert to Hestia Familia because of his priceless magic swords. As Bell makes his way to the throne room of the castle, the novel introduces a flashback that he has with Ryu the previous night. A special outfit quest actually adapts this scene in the DanMachi mobile game DanMemo. Ryu states that she can only lend her strength, but Bell has to be the one who ultimately settles the war game, a conflict between familias decided by the captains themselves, a point backed up by Bet earlier. And more than anything else, Bell wants to be the one to defeat Hyacinthus himself, with his own strength. One thing the novels mention is that any time that Bell uses his Argonaut skill to charge a spell or strike, he focuses on the image of a hero, usually from the tales he read as a child. This time, he focuses on a hero named Argus who fought to his dying breath to take back a stronghold that was overrun by a horde. There's a bit more to Cassandra's warning to Hyacinthus about Bell's firebolt. She first tells him that she sensed an omen about lightning, to which he mocks her, stating that the sky is blue and clear. He questions if she really believes lightning will fall, to which she responds, "Not fall, lightning will rise." And then on cue, Bell's Argonaut-charged firebolt completely destroys the throne room. The novel actually has Cassandra tackle Hyacinthus to shield him, and he recovers with torn clothes and his hair ragged. Somehow his appearance is completely unchanged from the blast in the anime. The gods watching the war game are also much more excited about Bell's quick trigger spell, seeing his firepower without the use of a chant. The anime makes the fight between Hyacinthus and Bell look like Bell completely outmatches him immediately, Bell breaking his flamberge almost immediately. The two actually trade blow for blow, with Bell constantly trying to attack from Hyacinthus' blind spot, leaving him no room to counterattack. There's a discussion between Hermes and Hestia to provide context as to how Bell is able to match Hyacinthus despite the difference of one level. Hermes guesses that Bell must level up from 1 at a point far beyond what most adventurers would level from. For example, stats like strength, agility, magic, dexterity, and endurance are broken down numerically with ranges classified from I all the way up to S. An adventurer who reaches D rank in at least one of these stats can level up to the next level as long as they have performed a deed that impresses the gods, Bell's feat being defeating a Minotaur at level 1. When Bell leveled up, most of his stats were at S rank, with agility being at double S. Though the level difference in adventurers is a big factor when gauging overall strength, it's the combination of Bell not leveling up until he had numerous S stats, and Hyacinthus likely leveling up as soon as he got the opportunity, meaning he likely had, possibly, only a few stats at D rank at most, before leveling up from 1 to 2 and then to 3. Bell's stats from level 1 carry over into his level 2 status with far more weight than the average adventurer. So, after training with Eyes and Tiona for a week straight, and then updating his status, he's able to match Hyacinthus in strength. Again, Bell does not have the Hestia knife in this battle and is using his new weapon forged by Wealth, Ushiwake Marushiki. It's stated that Bell actually had to resist some of the bloodlust coming from the weapon he used, its origin being the Minotaur he defeated. Cassandra doesn't actually appear right away before Hyacinthus starts his magic. He creates a cover of dust to hide himself and start casting. Bell tries to stop him by using Firebolt, but Hyacinthus takes the hit and doesn't break his chant. Then before Bell can try another Firebolt to stop him, Cassandra tackles him, leaving Belle unable to stop Hyacinthus from completing the chant. The rest of the fight in the anime is similar to the novels, but rather than Belle dropping his weapon as he stands up, it falls out of his hand when he collides with debris from the explosion. His right arm is described to be completely limp, rendered useless. You can't really tell this from the anime, especially when you still see Belle bending it as he punches Hyacinthus with his other hand. The board game ends with Hestia Familia's victory, and we are then brought back to the omitted Hestia knife subplot. The very beginning of episode 5 adapts the remaining portion of volume 6 with Lily back at Soma Familia, thanking Soma for taking care of her during her time in the Familia. This is when Lily was supposed to deliver the 10 million Valis won from the war game in exchange for the return of the Hestia knife. Also cut from the anime is Soma admitting to Lily that he had done her wrong, which is pretty significant considering gods are rather prideful beings and Soma comes off as a character with very little remorse in the anime. It's later stated that conditions in Soma Familia improved from that point forward. And that concludes the majority of the content that was either cut or altered with the conversion of the novel into the anime format. The biggest offenders were definitely the cutting of significant character moments, particularly between Lily and Soma, as well as the weight behind the conversions of Welf and Mikoto from their familias. The Hestia Knight subplot was taken out and Welf making a new weapon for Belle was never addressed, and of course the wargame itself felt like it was over as soon as it started, with Apollo Familia looking completely foolish and Hyacinthus made into a joke that was quickly disposed of. If you ever find a desire to read Volume 6 yourself, I highly suggest you do, as it's definitely a great standalone novel, showcasing the true birth of Hestia Familia. The next video will cover the Pleasure Quarter arc, based on the 7th light novel which is covered in episodes 5 through 10 of Season 2. Please look forward to it as Season 3 approaches faster and faster. Remember to like the video, subscribe to be notified on the next one, follow my Twitter, and join my Discord. As always, continue enjoying your time adventuring Aurario and the dungeon. This is Lorne, your guild advisor, signing out. 今選ぼうその